Welcome back to the table. Today, Ryan and I just played an Age Contrived. This is a new game from a new publisher, Bellows Intent.
Yeah.
And this does a lot of things that appeal to us. It looks like this big epic fantasy type game. It plays a lot more like a thinky Euro game, for sure.
Yeah.
It merges those things together, and while it's not mechanically or in many ways like Vindication, as I played it, those are some of the vibe that I got. Again, just from sort of the mashing up of those two concepts of where on the table, people look at this and go, oh, what are you doing? Fighting monsters and this and this and that. And you might be doing some of those things, although you're not really fighting monsters.
No, you're not really fighting
in this
anything.
Game. But Vindication does some of those same things, and I think this game is more than meets the eye.
Right, I think the similarity there, and I actually kind of feel you with those vibes. Like that same kind of feeling of, at its core, this game is a Euro.
Yes.
It is a tile management Euro where you are managing tiles that act as both your energy that powers your actions and as pieces that are going to come out to the board and do a wide variety of things. But that mechanic is almost masked, or you're distracted from it by this rich fantasy setting and these tasks that they give you of building all of these epic monuments. Makes it feel like more than a Euro game. It brings a lot of element of appeal that you maybe that wouldn't find in just a traditional element, a traditional Euro if we were just moving these tiles around.
Yeah, and one of the reasons is because a lot of traditional Euros don't also have these ridiculously glorious components that this game has. I mean, as you can see here, we've got these monuments already built. This is sort of the game in its end state. These monuments aren't just cardboard pieces that you construct. They are cardboard pieces that have magnets in them, and then, I'm going to just pull one apart right now. There's a little metal base with these prongs here in the bottom, and these things just sort of attach to them, better than what I'm doing right now, and form these structures, which is really kind of crazy and a very sort of cool form factor for the game. Not to be outdone are these player boards, though. These player boards, and it should be mentioned, these are sort of, I think, in the mid-tier version of
they're like the deluxe player boards. You can get cardboard ones or these really cool ones.
And these really cool ones, it's been said on other content, and I'll say it again here, they are super cool.
They are super cool.
But maybe not necessarily necessary for the game.
These are not necessary at all, but man, are they fun to use. It is. It's fun to use this mechanic.
So like Ryan was saying, some of the tiles on the bottom here, when you use one of the actions down here to do your things on your turn, you're going to take these energy out and just place them in your exhausted area. But some of the actions let you sort of send out the other energy out onto the board to do a number of different things. And when you do that with these, you pull it back and shoot it out instead of peeling it out of there. Again, is it necessary? No. Is it cool? Absolutely.
It is, and it gives you that feeling of deploying it out. And like, yeah, okay, you could just reach in there and pluck it out. And in the cardboard version, which comes with the basic game, you're not going to have any gameplay difference because you'll just lift it out. But there's just something very thematic that just feel. And I'll tell you what, when you sat down and when we first talked about this, I was like, that's the gimmiest of gimmicks.
Yeah.
Gimmickiest of gimmicks.
Is that a word? Okay.
But then when we started playing, and I like the way that they drop, like it just feels good. It feels satisfying. It works really well. And it just does make it a little easier to grab those pieces.
Plus, these are absolutely the sturdiest player boards I've ever encountered.
They really are.
In my entire life. Now, let's tell you a little bit about the game. Like we said, it is a Euro where you're sort of managing these tiles. Not only do you have those energy tiles, but you have these tiles inside here that you can replace with other tiles, which you can buy right here. But what you're doing on your turn is trying to contribute to the building of all of these monuments out here, which is what's going to trigger the end game is once they're all built. I have one that's unbuilt here off the side of the table. They lay like this, again, in a little magnetized stack on the board like that. And as you can see here, when you can contribute to them, you're going to put potentially some of the energy on here. As they're filled, you're going to add the pieces to the board to build that monument. And then once it's built, you've moved on. You've got a lot of other places to put your energy, though.
Yeah, I mean, managing that energy is hugely important because it's how you're really going to score points, because you're not only using it to build the monuments, you're binding your energy to those monuments, you're binding your energy to what they're called these pillars of civilization, which is kind of a scoring. The more pillars you get, the more you score. And you're also binding them to these achievements to score points. But once you've bound one of these pieces of energy, it's no longer available to you in your pool. So if you find yourself binding a lot of energy really early, you think you're doing really well, you're going to get a lot of points, then you realize that you don't have enough energy to even fill your player board or power all of your actions. It gets really tight. You do have a pool over here off to the side of energy that you can earn. Doing certain tasks in the game is going to allow you to gain that, and you're going to have to.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, when you complete a monument piece or when you actually add a piece to that, it's going to give you a choice. You're going to get to choose some kind of bonus that generally either upgrades your player board or upgrades your particular player character, lets you put some things on the board, or take some of your pieces from this stash over here. And I'll tell you, you're always tempted to take the shiny thing, like the fun thing that upgrades. But if you don't stop and take your pieces, you're going to run out so quick. And you managing that, like walking that line, is a very satisfying thing. I found myself on the wrong side of that line a couple times, which is what made me realize, oh shoot, I better start taking some actions to get these tiles or I'm going to be in real trouble.
Yeah, and once you do have all those tiles, they are going to let you sort of fuel your main player board. You have 2 player boards. You have one where you have all your exhausted energy and a couple tracks to move up, and then even some, I don't think they call them bridges or connectors.
Links.
These links that you can take off your player board and add to these areas, because you also have avatars out on the board that you're moving around. And for some cases, you have to have your avatar or a link that you've built in certain locations in order to contribute to certain things in the game.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on in this game, so we really can't break down every single thing. But I do want to say, before we get into who's it's for and who's it's not for, I love games where you can upgrade your actions, and this game, like what really worked for me here is upgrading this player board. Not only just upgrading these tiles with better tiles, you'll see that these tiles have some symbols on them. You have some conduits you can grab that have these matching symbols. So there's a whole element of when you're resting and you're moving these tiles around that conveyor belt, every time these symbols hit, you get some bonuses. You can actually upgrade the actions themselves to better versions of the actions. So you're customizing your player board to the point where you're firing off maybe multiple things every time you're taking actions. And that's something I really enjoy. And it does let you build your own play style, especially when we start talking about unlocking your variable powers that are unique to your faction. That really worked for me.
Yeah, the factions have variable powers. Even some of the links, that when you flip them from side to side, when you add them to the board, you can decide which side you're going to place out here, and then those effectively become more actions that you can take if you happen to move your avatar onto them. So there are a lot of times where you're able to build more out of your turn than what you may have expected. And on your turn, you're either taking actions, using the actions on your player board, maybe that gets you to move your avatar, getting another action, or you're advancing, and advancing is kind of cool in and of itself because you're going to fill up some energy into these tiles, but more importantly, you're going to take a tile or 2 potentially and slide it in to the mechanism like this, which is very satisfying, first of all.
Really is.
This one comes out, and then whatever you added, you're able to add energy into it. Now, I just willy-nilly added the energy that I had, but it's going to take a lot more thinking than that because this is a pretty thinky game. You're going to want to think about what energy you put in here, what kind of tile you put in here. These things here, as you can see, might fire off as I push them down. This is one of those links Ryan was talking about, and in this case, it would actually let me move my avatar. So, there's a lot of things you can sort of chain together in this game. So it's very thinky for a game that looks this sort of like grandiose.
I would say so. And let's talk about, that brings me right to who it's for. If you are a Euro player like myself, who like games like Vindication or Dwellings of Eldervale, or likes your Euro game to have this giant overproduced fantasy. I know not everyone does. Some people like their Euro games to look like farming in the Mediterranean, and that's fine. And I love those games too. But I do enjoy very well-produced Euro games that let me use these Euro mechanics to play on a board that is this much fun and gives this much level of Euro satisfaction. Because David hinted at the fact that all of these tiles have different symbols, and those symbols don't just matter because you're placing them on specific spots. They also all have individual powers. Whenever you trigger a monument, you're getting to fire off every piece that you contributed is going to fire off and do something for you as well. And there's even a compass piece that can bounce around to other places and trigger So you can get these cascading turns that are very satisfying where you're pulling off all of these combos. And that is, to me, what I love about a Euro game is that combo, feeling those really, really satisfying turns.
Yeah, and in terms of who's it for, I'm going to get very specific. I'm going to borrow from what you just said.
All right.
While this game, in many ways, is nothing like Vindication,
Right.
nothing like Dwellings of Eldervale,
Right. Not really.
on the other hand, I'd go so far as to say if you find yourself drawn to games that look like those games and do what those games do, I can't imagine that this game wouldn't also be appealing to you. Because I think it sits right along those two games on the shelf as exactly that.
Right,
a Euro game with all of this glorious sort of like fantasy theme built around it.
I think for most of us, when we see a game like this, we're prepared for a lot of dice rolling. We're prepared for a lot of maybe even like PvP combat or like running around this map,
rolling
doing
and
quests,
moving.
rolling and like there's just a lot of things that you think to generally play a game that looks like this or that feels like this or that does what this game does. You're generally using those more traditional mechanics. So yeah, this is a huge win for me that they paired it with such an interesting Euro system. But I think that does bring us right into who it's not for, actually.
Yeah, I would say the first, and this goes hand in hand with something Ryan said too. If you don't like games that necessitate careful planning, this game
necessitate is like
understatement.
an understatement.
This game might not be for you because you can find yourself in situations frequently, and not just because of one thing you've done kind of wrong, but maybe other things you've got. You might put in the wrong energy and go, oh, I should have completely put in different energy. Or you might have put in the right energy, but then you're like, I'm going to use this action, take an energy out of there, and then realize later, oh, I needed to use that energy once the tiles got shoved down the board here. And then it's a bit of a cycle to get back there. Like you have to advance a couple times, get more tiles, load your thing up. Now, some people can find that to be a satisfying cycle, and I think we are people who do that. But if you find yourself in situations where not carefully planning ruined your experience, this could have some of those moments.
Well, I would just say anyone that's watching this video, you know who you are as a gamer, right? And you know how you're going to react to that situation because it happened to both David and I multiple times where we go, wait, I'm going to do this action, then realize, wait a minute, 2 turns ago I took away the energy. I was planning to do this, or I stupidly moved my avatar, which moving avatars is a whole thing in itself because they are headed in a specific direction and they keep going in that direction. And so you need to like use these link tokens, these bridges to put out, and there's ways to manipulate how they move. And again, you need to be in the right space at the right time because a lot of this stuff, like coming to these monuments or putting these monument pieces, is kind of first come, first serve. These pillars up here are first come, first serve. If 2 players are in them, you're just out of luck. So having a pillar ready but not being in the right spot, going to use the move and realizing you miscounted, it can be a bummer a little bit.
Yeah, and not to mention, I mean, that's just some of it. I mean, there's even careful planning in a lot of the achievements that you have to fire off here. Now, once you've achieved these things, you can put one of your energy when you disperse it into one of these achievement spots, and you can simply score points. But some of these achievement spots are triggered off of how many other of that type of energy you already have bound on the table. And if you've not really thought about that in advance, you might go, oh, I've been binding the wrong kind of energy and I used the wrong kind of energy over here to get these points. Because you can really maximize your points if you've carefully planned that, as well as all the rest of the things you do.
I'll be honest, David gave me a little forgiveness because I almost messed up on the first turn of the game by binding one of my wild, you have very few wild tiles. And I mistakenly bound the wild tile when I shouldn't have, and I was like, that could have ruined my whole rest of my game on my first turn. You know, if you're not careful, if you end up losing all of your tiles of a specific symbol, and then you can't complete any monuments because you don't even have that tile, you really need to plan ahead. You need to have kind of a goal or a strategy, which again, that does work really well for me.
Yes.
But I know that there are some people that just will get frustrated by the amount of planning they have to put into it.
Yeah, and then going in hand with that, or Ryan touched on this, these monuments, they're first come, first serve with some of these spots. And if you're a person who's like, okay, I've got my plan, and forget you're sitting at a table with 4 other people maybe, and by the time it gets around to you, not only are those spaces gone, but that whole piece has been built. You know, you need to kind of like go, okay, he's probably going to do this. What energy does he have ready to go? Where is she going to do? You know, so again,
Well, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
plan ahead.
Because you need to plan ahead, but you can't ever. And that's the kind of feels like a conundrum or like a paradox. You need to plan ahead, but not so specifically. Like if you put all of the same energy on top because there's a spot that required all three of that energy, you need to think about the fact that that might not be there. Now you have three energy of the same type and know where to put them.
Yeah, remain flexible. Be prepared to contribute to multiple monuments in the event that one of them has gone away.
Plan ahead to be flexible. No, but like I think if that makes sense to you, that's a key component in a lot of Euro games. Like you have this idea because the way that you're loading this mechanism and the way that you're pushing these tiles, like the actions get better as you push. So you might be tempted to, like David said, to spend the energy on a lower action because it feels good right then, but then you will never get to use those top actions that are some of the stronger actions, and that and it can get you into a tough spot, but don't let that scare you away.
Yeah, so if you can't tell already, this is a very robust game.
Yeah.
We both liked it quite a bit. I think you've got a better sense of what you do in the game, although we haven't really shown you in detail all of that. So if you have any questions about that, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer anything you want to know about the game. Until next time, of course, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.